65 and up senior. They're being built simultaneously, but they have two separate entrances, two separate sets of amenities. They're gonna be two separate projects. They're basically just being built on both
Okay,
sides.
that was my question.
Yeah.
You have one entrance right now.
Correct, but it's gonna veer off into two separate entrances of two separate
Are they
properties.
gonna have entrances on 15th Street?
I don't recall
I
the site
see
plan
a
off the
bunch
top
of
of my
plumbing
head.
and pipes, but I don't see
I
anything.
would
And then,
guess
okay, so when's
so.
the next MPO meeting I can go to and say, hey, we need to fix these roads?
I don't know if it's on the MPO, I would have to look at the calendar. The MPO website has their calendar, I'm not on it, so I don't have a record of that exactly. But I don't know, I would guess because of this, the sheer size, the number of units, there's more than one entrance, there has to be. I don't know
But
where
you're
those
gonna go on a
entrances.
2-lane highway, a 2-lane road. I don't even know if I call it a highway.
Yeah, 15th is getting widened to 4, but
15th,
I
well,
could-
if you talk about the old 15th, you got giant ditches that I'm nervous even driving down.
I'll
So
agree,
it
it's,
gets me out of bed.
it is being, that's the number one MPO priority for the area, but it's being done in, I believe, 4 phases. Again, I'm not on MPO, so this is just from hearing things and seeing things. I think it's either 4 or 6 stages that it's being widened and fixed to fix that, I mean, those are super dangerous. I mean,
Yeah.
not only are they little canals, they're canals that if you fall into it, you got basically a concrete street wall.
I mean,
It's like-
I took my
I get
brother to Southeast, my son went to Southeast,
Yeah.
I hope it's down there.
Oh, I agree. But it's being done in phases, but the decision was to service the Manatee MPO. Let's start on the south side and work our way north, instead of north side, work our way south. So the fixes that are being done in phases over the course of like 10, 12, 15 years, as funding's available, is going to start down by the Televast Whitfield area and work its way.
Okay, my history is long, and the county lent the state $1 million to fast track State Road 70 from 4 lane to 6 lane in front of the Walmart and by the Sam's. They fast tracked that. The county lent them interest free to do it quickly. So we've got money, we could do the same thing.
This is a long road. This isn't widening a few lanes and in a little spot. There's a
What's a
lot.
mile cost?
What?
What's a mile cost?
On that, because you have to deal with the canals, I don't know. A normal mile, the rule of thumb we've been working off of is about 8 to 10 million per lane mile. Typically 8, but some areas just the right of way cost is a lot more, so call it 8 to 10, especially with inflation. We were using 8 last year, so it's probably higher. But that's per lane mile to widen. I hate widening any of our roads, I think it's a complete waste of money, but that's what it costs.
What about the malls?
The malls,
Soda
rightly owned. The mall went into foreclosure from a group that owned it out of North Carolina. They got foreclosed by their lender. Declared bankruptcy, went to bankruptcy sale, and a gentleman from just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, purchased it. He owns it now.
With the intent for what?
For within reason, whatever he wants, honestly. It's private. My understanding is it's predominantly predominantly residential with some retail. But the thing is, that mall is the highest intensity zoning we have. As of right, it's already there. So he
Which
doesn't,
means what?
which means he doesn't have to come to it. It's not like he's one of these developers buying a cow pasture out in Mayaca, saying, may I please build something on this. He can show up and just level that thing and start building tomorrow after pulling permits. It's very high intensity, very high density rights already. He doesn't have to come to me or anyone on this board to ask permission to do it. He can basically just get administrative sign off on whatever site plan he has, and there's so much availability in terms of use, so much availability in terms of density, so much availability in terms of height. There's a good chance we're never even gonna see that. And he's just, in theory, he'll have to do whatever he wants. My guess is because it's going to be very expensive for him to prepare it properly, because it's in a bowl, there's lots of flooding issues there, there's no interconnecting roads, because it was just a big parking lot with a building in the middle of it. He's probably gonna come, and I've had preliminary conversations with his daughter and his planner and his attorney, just to get a sense of what he was doing with it. He's going to need some cut-through roads, so he's probably gonna wanna come to the county and say, hey, why don't you build some county roads here and help me out? Now we got something, because now if you want something from me, now I can get something from you. now you're coming for approval, now I can have a little bit of a say in what you're doing, or I'll say no. So that's our only window of opportunity on that property, is to, if he comes to us to try to do something, then maybe we have an opportunity to say, hey, you know, we need you to slap some workforce housing in there, we need you to do something else in there.
You're
But,
talking to Soto Mall?
yeah.
Yes.
But right now, it's privately owned, and the zoning is already in place for
Is there-
almost anything he could wanna do, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Is there stores open in there?
Whether they're open now, I mean, there are some on the outskirts, because not all of it's owned by him, like the Sears that turned into the self-storage, that's there, the Hungry Howie's is still there, the
Oh,
furniture
okay,
store's there.
around it, but not inside.
There may, I haven't been in there in a couple of years. Since he bought it, I don't know if he bought out the tenants, or just let all the month-to-month leases burn off. I don't see why he would
Right,
keep the tenants
I'll
in there.
have to go, because he wants the whole thing.
He bought the whole thing except the parts that he didn't buy.
Okay.
Well, again, because the self-storage was privately owned, so whatever development he does, that self-storage is staying there. And the Hungry Howie's, he bought, but it still has like 7 years left on the lease, you either should buy him out or leave them.
Firestone sits in there too.
Yeah, so this, and I don't know if that's part of it, so there's pieces of it that he can't control that are just going, he's got to build around. But my understanding was it was mostly apartments with some retail components to it. When I talked to them about it, I said it was boring. I said, it looks to me like this is a generational opportunity to change Manatee County. It's Main and Main, it's, once 44th is done, that's the main east-west from Lakewood Ranch to the beach. And 301's the main north-south, downtown Braden, downtown Sarasota, you're on a major transit line. This should be like amazing, this should be like, I'll give you more height, I'll give you more density. I want you to build more on green spaces, I want an amphitheater, I wanna see like 4th of July fireworks at this place. I'm like, what I see in your pictures looks like you're building me a huge parking lot with some buildings in the middle. Like, it's no different than the mall, really. So I wasn't excited about it. I was hopeful that that would be a really game-changing kind of thing. Right now, it seems like it's just the easy way out, but again, I don't control it.
Maybe it's just the first time.
Maybe, I could be persistent.
Who owns the land that the post office sits on?
I'm guessing the federal government, but I don't think there's lots of post offices you're gonna have to.
Our post office right here over on
Oh,
57 has huge potholes when you go through the parking lot. And so, I mean, they keep raising the price of postage and they can't fix their parking lot. So who do I complain to?
Joe
You
Biden.
can?
I don't know who owns it, they don't own, they also lease them, it could be a lease, it could be a purchase. Hold on. You can talk to me later.
I don't know, I just figured everybody would wanna know. Governor Ron DeSantis announced the appointment of Raymond Turner to Manatee County Board of County Commissioners, and he will start effective August 1st.
Who is he?
So
You know for what my application?
that's who, I guess it was announced while we're sitting here.
Yep, it was just announced at 6:29.
He intentionally, DeSantis intentionally waited for me to be in the middle of my town hall, so I
No, I mean, it was asked earlier, and I just got a notification.
She's referring to, because Commissioner Baugh for District 5, mainly representing Lakewood Ranch, over to like the Terra area, resigned as of July 31st. Yesterday was her last in-person meeting, because she's also the chair of the MPOAC, and they've got a meeting today, tomorrow, and Friday in Orlando, so she was going over there to finish up her term there and reassign a new chair for that. So we've been waiting from when she first put in her resignation letter to find out who is going to be appointed to her seat. Jess, my wife, just read off that he was already appointed as Ray Turner, and he'll be starting on August 1st, immediately after she's done.
Who is he?
Ray Turner is you ever see the Turner real estate? Maybe not, it's mainly out east. Turner real estate signs are black and blue signs, the T is kind of in blocks. He owns a real estate company that does brokerage, he's on the planning commission. He only recently went on the planning commission. He took He was appointed to the planning commission for Mike Ronson when Mike was elected to District 4 County Commission.
So now we have to replace that spot on the planning commission.
And we have another spot already open on the planning commission, so we'll be now having 2 spots on the planning commission. Because one's already being advertised, and now we're gonna have to replace that.
Thank you.
So is the planning commission the ones that make the recommendations for whether or not to move the FDAG?
Broad question. The planning commission effectively sees, for the most part, everything the Board of County Commissions sees, but they don't have decision-making authority. They're an advisory board, much like Glenn's on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and they review things, and they get put on there due to institutional knowledge and just background to make recommendations to our board. Planning commission is the same thing. Every project that comes to us for approval for a rezone or discussion about a comp plan change goes to them first. So they can assess it and maybe recommend things to the developer, like, hey, tweak this or tweak that, or, and they vote on it. When it comes to us for the final real vote, that is binding, we see the comments that they made, we see their vote, we see if it was approved or not approved, and sometimes the things are tweaked based upon comments that they make. So I doubt anything would come up as a standalone for moving the FDAG. My guess is it would come up in the context of the greater comp plan rewrite that's being worked right now, and it would be put within there. So yes, they would see that when the whole comp plan comes, and the FDAG would just be a component.
But that last land use that y'all approved, you didn't, but everybody else approved, out on State Road 64, where they wanted to expand out, and you said that the roads wouldn't handle it, that the water couldn't handle it, and they did it anyway. Would that planning commission have advised them that it was not a good idea and that it could not?
They can advise whatever they want. They did not. They voted in favor of that project, but so did my board, so I can't fault them. If my board did too. But that's on the other side of the FDAB. Whether or not the future development area boundary moves is going to be a discussion for this board. But again, my guess is nobody on this board has maybe 1 or 2 people feel they do, would have the political capital to bring that up as a standalone item. Like, that would be insane. Like, I can't get them to make a decision on impact fees. I certainly am not gonna expect them to come out in front of the public and make a vote on that line. My guess is if somebody wants to move it, they're going to slide that somewhere into the not somewhere, it'd be easy to find. But it'll come during the discussion of the bigger comp plan changes. It'll just be something that's in there. And everyone's going to quickly flip through and look for that. It's one of the first things people are gonna look for, but it'll still be in the broader discussion.
But the word on the street and on Facebook is that our county commission is owned by the developers and that they will always vote with the
Except George.
developers and never say no to any big development. So how do you argue against that when the developers are the ones that are putting people in place?
I didn't argue against it.
I've never seen y'all say no to the developers when they wanna come in and put another
Except
5,000
George.
houses.
Except George.
Except you.
I mean,
They're approving every single time that they wanna build.
It's because they fund their campaigns.
there's a lot,
They
there's
got
a,
it.
there's a
So
lot.
how do we argue against these people that?
There's a lot to unpack there. First off, people have private property. People have a right to build what the comp plan and the future land use map and the land development code allows them to build. That's how the United States works. If you buy a piece of land that says you can build 3 units per acre, you can build 3 units per acre, and if someone comes to me and says, can I please build what I'm allowed to build? I'm going to say, yes, you may. That's how the future land use map, and everyone says we're rezoning or we're upzoning. The future land use map will say, this is ag today, but future land use, it's R3. You can build 3 units per acre. It's not R3 today, because then I would have to start taxing them on R3 today, and that's not fair to them. I can't change your zoning without your permission and then start charging you more because you have a higher zoning. It just stays ag until you feel like coming and asking for the zoning. I already promised that you can have. It says right on the future land use map, this can be R3, just come and ask. And that's what a lot of this is just come and say, now can I do what you've already said I'm allowed to do with this land, and it's my land? Yes. When someone comes and the issues come up and these things on Facebook, who knows why things come on Facebook, but the comments you see on Facebook, or if you really just wanna have fun, look at the comments on like Nextdoor, like, those things are because of things where it's not, it says I'm allowed to have R3, so give it to me. Those are easy, you just get those. It's when someone comes and says, this says it's agriculture, it's only supposed to be agriculture, now can I build R3? Now it starts coming into the board has to make decisions, we don't have to adhere to it. So if we say, okay, that makes sense, we're allowed to give people things. In theory, it's supposed to be as a trade for something, but nobody ever trades anything. Like I argued, the first land use meeting I was in was a Neal Communities project, which I thought was a cool project, but it was R3 as of right, they wanted R6. And I said, funny enough, I literally have something in my code that allows you to get exactly what you want, because I have an affordable housing density bonus. And if you use it, you get to double your density from R3 to R6. What a coincidence. Like, you literally get exactly what you want. You don't have to ask my permission. Go do it. And they said, but we don't really want to build the affordable housing, so can I please just have it? I made the argument to the board, saying, do not give this to him, because we have his ability to get it. That's what the incentives are for. And I was told by my board, well, we can't start changing things up now and requiring people to use the incentives. I'm like, that's literally what they're for. That's the exact reason why they're in this thing in the first place. So that's where we start getting a bad rap on that. It's when we're giving things away for nothing when we shouldn't, because there's always a trade-off. Sarasota did the same thing with Rosemary District. They were 25 units per acre just north of downtown. It was a slummy area, restaurants moving out of it. They decided to increase the density to encourage development near downtown, near walkable areas. They increased it piece by piece all up to 75 units per acre. Like, tripled the density, but didn't tie any of that increase to affordable housing. They just said, take it, 75 units per acre, knock yourself out. For the first 1,800 units. The first 1,800 units were all permitted within 12 months. Everyone, all the developers flooded in there. It was great density. None of it was affordable housing. And then they said, what did we do? Well, we just gave all this away for nothing. They could have said, give me 10% affordable housing, 15% affordable. Everyone would have given it to them, because the density bonus was so dramatically high, the profit and the value was so incredibly increased, they would have built the affordable housing. But they didn't ask for it. And that's where we run into problems, is now you can never get affordable housing in Rosemary ever again. All the land's used.
Kind of
It's
like the
all
library.
high.
Well, could we go back to the Soda Mall? Because I think this is, you could give us a good example.
Sure.
Here, right? So it's commercial, and that's automatically allowable to be transferred to residential at 1.54 units or something?
Now it's incredible. Oh, man, that's right. You brought up a good point. No, the density on that's going to be astronomical now.
So
But it's not commercial, it's ROR, it's retail, office, residential.
Okay.
So it already allows anything. But now,
So explain to us exactly what is anything?
you can build almost, it's the highest intensity. I don't have the whole chart or everything. I think you can build hotel on there. I doubt you can build something like a car dealership, but maybe you can, because Conley's right next to it. So some portion of it.
But you would have to build up to take or drain into
Yes,
something.
but this year, in the Florida legislature, in the Senate, they passed Senate Bill 102. It's the Live Local Act. Live Local Act allows any developer as of right to build to build residential with a percentage of it affordable on any parcel zoned commercial, industrial, or mixed use, any place in the state of Florida without permission. And you're allowed to build to the highest height of any height allowance within a 1 mile radius, and allowed to build to the highest residential density any place in the entire county. So we have R20 density allowable without incentives. So you can build on that parcel 20 units per acre at 56 acres, I think, and to the maximum height of a 1 mile radius of that building, which I think there's some things right down the road that are probably like 6 or 8 stories. So you may be talking like 20 units per acre times 56 acres at 8 units, you could really get, with that SB 102, you can build a lot.
And the traffic count would change, so just.
They still have to run traffic studies, they still have to get environment, you can't just put a shovel in, you still have to get your environmental reports, you still have to make sure there's not, I mean, there's not gonna be a gopher tortoise, there's not blade of grass on that property. But you still have to get your environmental done, you still have to get your flood zoning done, and your stormwater tests, and your traffic studies, all of that you still have to do. But you don't have to come in front of the board for SB 102, that's administrative as of.
And that's state.
The state passed that this year, signed it in March. In fact, it was the very first bill passed and the very first bill signed this entire legislative session.
A great idea that really benefited me was they had what was called City University in Port St. Lucie. And it was an 8-week course, 4 hours once a week. And we learned about every single department in the city government. Everything from building zoning to people that run the big machines that clean our ditches, not that kind of stuff. And to solid waste, anything that was involved in the city, we learned about. I actually still have my binder. I kept all the information that they gave. And so maybe it would be a benefit for the county to do something like that. It's all volunteer, you know.
Yeah, maybe, I'll mention it, I mean, it's a little different having a whole county do something than a city do something. I know Bradenton has done things similar to that, but there's 50,000 people and 450,000 people. We do have some things like we do have open houses for public works at times, we have done open house stuff with the sheriff, we have had things, so we have done it not as coordinated and organized as you're talking about. You're talking more like our chamber does a leadership thing, and you go all over the county doing it, it's not county government specific. You're talking something like that, where you have a course and people get signed up, or like how UF Extension has like master gardening, but this is master government thing. But the same basic, it's an interesting idea, I'll bring it up and see if it's something we've ever done before or thought about again. The question is, how do you manage who does it, because again, there's a big difference between Port St. Lucie and Manatee County, and you can't have 500 people showing up at my transit station all at once to like wander around looking at buses from a liability and a
We had to register for the class, and I think there was maybe a dozen people.
Okay, I will bring it up, it's actually an interesting idea, I like the idea, I'll bring it up.
So one thing that I said afterwards, what we should have done, is he had a mock city council meeting.
One every 2 weeks.
Last night, instead of graduation ceremony, but had a mock city council meeting. Elect a mayor and the city council, the administrator, and have people come up and say, okay, we want to do this planning and zoning, or we want this or whatever, and have their 3 minutes to speak. And we got to actually, would have got to sit at the dais and.
No, it's a good idea, I'll look into it, again, leadership we do a mock land use for leadership, in fact, I'm the chair every year, just to keep them in line. Yeah.
With all this apartment condo building that everyone's talking about, what's,
Condo building, I don't think we have a condo in all Manatee County,
I live in one.
I'm not saying, okay, I'll apologize
Okay,
for
DeSoto,
exaggerating.
if DeSoto develops and puts up all these apartments, condos, whatever, houses, what are we doing about school?
School board issue. I'll talk to Chad, this is his district, right?
Yeah.
No, it's all valid concern. Here's the thing, when we build anything, is, you're not building in a bubble. Every time I build anything, I have to build or provide some incremental piece of every other thing in the county for that one house. And it doesn't, you can't really monetize it or analyze it for one house per se. But the reality is, I build 100 houses, it's not as simple as, hey, 100 houses, my tax base went up. People will argue that to justify approving 100 houses. But now, those 100 houses are a couple hundred people that want to go to the library. A couple hundred people that say, where's my park? A couple hundred people that are driving their cars on the road. A couple of people that have a couple hundred kids that have to go to school. A couple hundred people that want to go to the beach and say, hey, where's my parking on that beach? Or, hey, I have a boat, build me a boat ramp. Or, where can I play pickleball? Like, it's not that simple. And again, valid point, it's not just the county stuff. When I approve something, I'm basically providing unfunded mandates on all of the other taxable entities around here, because South Manatee Fire and West Bradenton Fire, now they have more people they have to take care of. They may need to build new stations, get another truck, get a ladder truck if I approve something that's too high. The school has to figure out, hey, do I have capacity? Do I have to build a new elementary school or high school someplace? All of these entities have to deal with all this. So it's a valid point. It's not my responsibility to figure out schools, but I don't think we do a good enough job. We get reports. We get a school report every project. Every project, there's a school report that says, this is the capacity, this is where that school will be, this is the current capacity, this is how many kids are there, there's enough room for 150 more kids, we're estimating 40 kids in this neighborhood, you're good. And we get that. We get that report for everything we do.
That DeSoto man is gonna have to do that?
That the DeSoto man would have to do.
Georgia.
But the point is, but the reality is, nothing can stop him. Even if he gets a report and it says, you are going to sink our schools, we cannot put the number of kids we think are gonna be there in the current schools, he's gonna say, you better build a school.
Yeah.
Because I'm allowed to build this, there's literally nothing you can do to stop me. Kids are gonna start moving here, you better get cracking or start getting some portables to slap behind that other school because my kids are coming. And that's just that's the reality of government. And that's why you always have to be looking ahead, and we need to do better jobs of projecting. Schools are a major issue. Utilities are a major issue. I don't honestly care, roads are a major. People wanna make roads an issue because it's a fun thing to talk about and it looks good on a mailer that you built on a road. But you can still get from here to there on a 2-lane road if you have to. When I run out of water, I run out of water. There's no took a few extra minutes. Nope, done. Same thing with schools. When I run out of capacity at school, I can't cram 60 kids in a classroom. I'm just like, sorry, your kid's working, is going to school from home. You could drive slower. I can't put more kids in the classroom. I can't get more water out of your farm. So some things have to be projected forward, have to be accounted for and budgeted for and prepared for. There's no option. Other things, there's inconveniences. It's an inconvenience you can't go to the beach on Memorial Day. It's an inconvenience you can't park your trailer to launch your boat on the 4th of July. Those are inconveniences, but they're not really affecting your life. You don't have water, your garbage doesn't get picked up, your kid can't go to school, that affects your life. Those are non-negotiable things that the county has to look at.
Hence the impact fees.
I know there's a couple questions on animal county welfare and animal welfare. Wants to jump in on that. So I'm just hoping you can help me understand something that transpired yesterday. I could not attend, but I watched the replay. So in the time allotted for the agenda item in the afternoon, Sarah talked about everything that Animal Services did and spent the volunteer coordinator losing another volunteer, which isn't related to the original 11, how she was actually going to get that done to make it all happen.
She did, maybe not the answer you wanted, but she, look, I'm not going to, and look, I spent the second half of my recess dealing with this animal welfare stuff. I emailed every single volunteer, some cases multiple times, I talked to them on the phone, I met with some of them in my office, I met with some of them out in public, I met with Sarah, met with Jody, met with Lee, went to the Palmetto shelter, went to Nate's to look at what they were doing, to try to get this resolved and get things moving forward for the good of the dogs, for the good of the volunteers, for good of animal welfare as a whole. I can't, and I know people keep calling me out on it, saying it's not true, but look, I don't lie to anybody about anything. I literally tell all of you everything every month. I don't care. We don't determine how our volunteers work. We don't determine who our employees are. We don't I hire a county administrator, which I'm actively looking for one, and I hire a county attorney. That's it. That's by Florida statute, section 125, that's my role relative to employment here. I can't sit up there on that dais and grill my staff, who isn't even my staff, it's Lee's staff, saying, you better stop talking about this other stuff and tell me why you fired Kathy, or why you fired Joyce, or why you fired Jan. That's not my role to do that. I risk literally getting sued in a civil case for interference with employment. It's not something I'm going to do. I gave Sarah an open platform for whatever she wants to discuss, in part to show we are moving some things forward. There are things we're doing relative to the dogs right now. And I stated at the end of the public comment section at the beginning, my views that I said. I hope we can resolve this for the 11 volunteers, whether it's up in Palmetto, or them down in Bishop, or some other capacity, because I said it right there. I said, these are our hardworking, dedicated volunteers that put a lot of time and effort into this. I hate to lose their labor and their dedication. I said that there on the dais. I said that in front of Sarah and Jody, so they know where my mindset's at. But she did say, one, we have the MSO stuff that we said back in April we were going to do, and we are.
What's that?
Manatee Sheriff's Office.
I know, what,
Because they have a lot of very low risk, like the people that come and like clean the canals, like the people that
oh, as for volunteers,
Yeah.
volunteers.
Yes,
Okay.
well, they're not volunteers, I promise you, they're not voluntarily living there.
No, they're performing volunteer duties.
Correct.
Okay.
So we were using them to do some of the stuff, because the argument's always been, people are coming to volunteer to walk dogs and interact with animals, not to scrub floors. And so, some maybe, but we have right across from the Palmetto Center, we've got the jail. And we can bring them over to do some of that before everyone shows up. The quirk of that was, they can't be there when the volunteers are there because of the security risk. So we have to coordinate it so they come early in the morning and they leave before the doors open for the day. We're not allowed to have the inmates there, while even staff's there, it's deputies and them. But now what we're doing is, we're building 20 to 30, I heard 20, but then I heard someone say 30, kennels at the jail. So that we can move dogs over there, which A, helps with capacity at the shelter, and B, helps them socialize, because now they can go out in the yard, they can be interacting, which helps the inmates, because it gives them some company and helps the dogs, because they're socializing and getting more familiar with people, and it puts them over there on a full-time basis, and we'll rotate them. So we're actively building, I think they're almost done. I think in near future, you're gonna see those dogs moving over there.
But that's not necessarily, Lori Crawford, God rest her soul, had started this no-kill movement
Okay.
20 years ago. She
Right.
was part of the, perception of, what it could be. And she came up with a positive support program, similar to what TF does with Bill Lobos in New Orleans.
Right.
And many other counties do it, in Florida. And that's one, I thought that they were talking about that at the commission meeting the other day. I don't know if this building kennels out there and having the dogs out there is also going to maybe transpire hopefully into a training program where the inmates are training the dogs, giving them a skill that they can take into the the world when they get out?
That I don't know, that's
And
not,
also
that's not,
training
even-
dog.
the inmates don't even have anything to do with me at all. The inmates are the sheriff, who's a constitutional officer and has full reign over, they do get trained, I don't know if you've been out to jail, voluntarily, actual.
I took leadership entities, I have.
Okay, so they have a lot of training programs, our jail's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Really,
amazing,
it's
yeah.
really cool.
Horticulture.
Yeah, they got greenhouses, they have welding classes, MTC came over, they have a whole fishery there at the top, yeah, they make their own uniforms, they make their own.
Yeah, training
masks.
dogs should be.
Yeah,
the next
correct,
thing.
correct, so I could see that being a valuable thing that they would add to the repertoire of things with the intention of, once people get out of jail, we want them to go work and be.
When the dogs are trained, more adoptable.
Correct, so I would hope that's the case, I don't know what their plan is at this point.
I thought that's what.
But anyway, so from volunteer, we are moving some of the dogs. The other thing we're doing is she mentioned, I forgot what she called it, there's some volunteer program or whatever, so I forgot what she called it. But we're doing a number of things. For one, every member, once it's finalized, every employee of the county, which is 2,300 or something, give or take now, can effectively go and volunteer at the shelter and get vacation hours in exchange for volunteering, which opens up 2,300 potential people to go over, on their free time or whatever. It's like, oh, for lunch, I'm gonna go over to the shelter for an hour, and then they get an hour of vacation time they can put into their book. And that allows for more volunteers over there as well. So there are a number of things we're doing.
What about Bright Futures? Can they get credit for volunteering for Bright Futures?
Yeah.
I think
You
it's,
gotta be of a certain age.
yeah, Bright Futures is getting more and more, you can work at McDonald's now, and it counts for Bright, you get paid for Bright Futures.
Really?
Yeah, a job ball. I think they just gave up on trying. But there are things we're doing, and the biggest thing, honestly, is I'm just trying to get us out of Long Meadow.
And when you say that was
And-
weird.
Well, because we've got a huge, we've always been intending to get, when we took the Bishop shelter, it's on a huge parcel of land. It was an old dilapidated building that was basically
Like,
condemned.
house half the dogs that are at home.
And it's being taken down anyway. So we got the beautiful building, and that has the x-ray machines and the vets and 50-something dog kennels, plus you have a place for rabbits and ducks running around and all kinds of stuff. The intention was to use all that excess land, and the original plan was to build a new facility, but then it was gonna be a capped facility. It was gonna take 2 to 3 years, and money that wasn't currently in the budget to be able to provide the capacity. That's why I had some volunteers and some people mention to me these prefab things, and then I started talking to Sarah about it, and that's why we were out at Nate's. And we've already had our designers working on it. Instead of 2 to 3 years and upwards of $20 million, we think we can get this whole thing done in like $4 million by like this spring. And we're already working on the design to put all the infrastructure in for the plumbing and the sewer and the lift station, the electrical in that whole area. And then we have procurement already going out, working on the prefab stuff, and allow us what Nate's has, where you basically have 4 kennels with a little courtyard in the middle, and you have stacks of those, but my conversation was, we would put the infrastructure much broader than what we actually need, and basically build out for 100, 120 dogs first, but no, we already have the infrastructure in place for another like 2 or 3 sets of 4 going forward to grow with the county. But by doing that, it does a lot. Then I'm not a dog expert, but having less dogs in there, it cuts down on their stress. If you put walls they can't see through, they don't see each other, it's easier to move them around.
Temperature control.
Correct, but yeah, they have solar panel on top of it, solar on top of every one that runs fans.
But what about something out east, because nobody's gonna drive.
They do, people say that, that's not true.
No, it's true. They don't drive from Lakewood Ranch to adopt a dog from Bishop, they're gonna go to Lakewood Ranch Humane Society, they're gonna go to Nate's, where, they're close, just like a restaurant, you don't go outside.
Right now, I'll just answer your question, because this comes up every 6 months, every year for the past 6 years. Right now, there's no plans to build one east, because we have to focus attention where it's intended. Right now, we've got the land at Bishop, we've got the money reserved for Bishop, we're trying to get out of Palmetto, that's step number 1. I mentioned in April about these prefabs, the possibility of saying, hey, here's an advantage, because if these work, then we can do a pilot out in East County, because we can just go out and buy 6 or 8 more of these things, put them out there with a little bit of staff, use it as strictly an adoption as opposed to an intake or vet, bring some dogs out there, test out East County and see its viability and make that decision. So I did mention that back in April. So there is a possibility. Right now, we do have Nate's, we do have Laker Ranch, Nate's actually now uses one of their kennels for our dogs.
Right, they pull.
Yes. And so and we bring our dogs over there and they all get adopted.
Yeah.
And that's part of the issue with Palmetto. Like, some of this adoption is where? People don't want to go literally to the other side of the railroad tracks.
Location.
Up in Palmetto to walk through what was basically a mental institution looking facility of concrete, of cinder blocks, to go look for a dog. Whereas you go to.
Well, they're
Bishop,
actually not allowed to go.
And now they're not. And since COVID, now you have to wait out in the little
You have.
park area or whatever you wanna call it, dirt with a bench.
No, they're grassed yards that Prince of Yankee County owns.
I meant they're not.
$4,000 for out of fundraising.
I get it. I'm just saying they're not, like, you go to.
I'm sorry,
Nate's-
40,000, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm saying when you go to Nate's, they actually have like rooms you can hang out in, and they got these like little individual things with murals painted on them, there's a roof over with fans
It's
going.
amazing what private money will get.
Understood, it's a big difference, that is why everyone calls me like, I wanna show you what you're supposed to do with your animal welfare. I wanna take you to Shangri-La Bel Air Private Academy for Dogs down here, like,
That some developer just wrote $1 million check.
I use your tax, I might as well start packing up my office now. If you think I'm using tax dollars to build this, you're like this has an Olympic-sized pool and a splash pad. No, forget it.
The coffee maker.
Forget it. But they are nice. But we are working on it. And I know everyone wants to snap fingers and fix it, and I wish we could. I just want this fixed. I want it for the dogs. I want it for everyone. I want volunteers back. I want everyone to be happy. More than anybody else. I'm spending a lot of time on this. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to what's going on with the volunteers because it's not my department to do it. We are working on trying to move the dogs out of Palmetto quick. I'm hoping this is more of a 9 to 12 month instead of a 2 to 3 year, and it all gets done within budget and they're all in better shape. But that's all I can say right now because nothing in government snap of a finger. I've been waiting for a community land trust since January 2021.
I think my point is I just know how much it takes on an everyday basis there. And she's promising those extra things with the training programs, Canine Good Citizens, running the play groups, integrating the sheriff's office. That takes a lot of people. Never mind that every day you gotta come in, clean the kennels, walk the dogs, do the dishes, take the laundry out. Like, where are these people coming from? I think they're great programs. And again, she said lots of things about animal welfare. I think all that's great. Control officers, everything to do with buildings like these, but just day to day, all that's happening.
I don't
She's
disagree.
really gonna like be able to.
I don't disagree with you at all. And, you know, I have to rely on, we have staff. The staff has to do a job. And Sarah oversees animal welfare, Jody oversees Sarah, Courtney oversees Jody, and Lee oversees Courtney. I oversee Lee. The very, very top end of that. And I have to trust that we have good staff that cares, and I believe our staff does, that entire chain is going to make sure things get done, regardless of who it is doing it. And that's all I can hope for and pray for, that I believe our staff are smart, I believe our staff are dedicated. Our staff is very high quality, very qualified. They can go work in the private sector and probably make more money and not get yelled at as much in the paper. Because my private sector job, I'm never in the paper. Unless it's like, hey, he did something good. Never anything bad. So these people can leave if they want to. They're here because they want to be here. They want to help the community. So I have to trust that it's in their heart to do it. And if they have to deal with a temporary shortfall in volunteers or switching things up, they'll do it. If they can't, then God willing, they'll go back and find those volunteers to make up for it.